Welcome to the first video in our deep dive series exploring the lore of the major gods in Age of Sigmar. Today we begin with none other than Sigmar, the God-King himself. Join us as we journey through his humble beginnings as a mortal in the world that was, his discovery of the mortal realms, and his relentless battles against the Chaos gods and Nagash. Sigmar's story is filled with noble deeds, betrayal, and the heavy responsibility of leading the pantheon of order. While he embodies the role of a warrior king, his actions in the mortal realms are often controversial, erratic, and at times brutally pragmatic. He's a complex figure. Yes, he united the mortal realms against chaos, casting light into darkness, but he's also a tragic one. Years of betrayal, disillusionment with his own creations, and manipulation by the ruinous powers have left him reclusive, cold, and emotionally detached. Sigmar isn't your typical good guy god, and that's the gritty reality of the Age of Sigmar universe. Even the heroes are tainted. So whether you're brand new to Age of Sigmar or a long-time fan, stick around. I've scoured every piece of lore to present a nuanced picture of Sigmar. In this telling, we'll confront the full complexity of the God King, his insecurities, and his obsession with setting things right. No holds barred. Our story begins in the lost world that was, a land of kingdoms, magic, and unending threats. As legend tells, he was born beneath a twin-tailed comet, a sign of destiny that foretold his role in shaping the fate of humankind. Raised by a tribal chieftain in a brutal world where strength ruled, Sigmar's early years were defined by courage and charisma. His rise to legend began when his tribe was attacked by a vicious greenskin horde. In the midst of battle, his father fell, and Sigmar seized the legendary warhammer Gal Maraz, driving back the enemy and saving his people. From that day his path was set. Sigmar united the warring tribes, forging an empire that became a beacon of hope. His strength and honor even won the loyalty of the dwarfs, who became lifelong allies. Sigmar ruled as a warrior king, beloved and feared, but the world that was always shadowed by doom. Despite his heroism and victories, he could not prevent the final catastrophe that would consume his world. The end came in fire and blood. The forces of chaos, warriors, demons, and corrupted monsters, descended upon the world that was in an apocalypse known as the End Times. Cities burned, the land was torn apart, and the skies were filled with the screams of the dying. Sigmar fought valiantly, but even his strength was not enough to halt the tide of destruction. He watched as the empire he had built crumbled, as his friends and allies were consumed by the darkness, and as the world he loved was torn asunder. Being powerless to prevent the destruction of his homeworld by the forces of chaos would haunt Sigmar forever. In the final moments of the old world, Sigmar was cast into the void, a fragment of his shattered world drifting through endless darkness. It seemed like the end of everything, a moment of despair that no mortal could survive. In the void between worlds, the remnants of a shattered existence drifted, a world destroyed by chaos and ruin known as the world that was. Amongst the wreckage, a figure clung to life, a warrior king named Sigmar, holding onto a fragment of his lost world with unbreakable determination. The great celestial dragon Dracothian appeared. Seeing Sigmar's undying spirit, Dracothian breathed life back into the broken warrior, reviving him in the darkness of the cosmos. The great dragon saw in Sigmar a kindred spirit, one who had known loss and would not let it define him. In gratitude, Sigmar bestowed gifts upon Dracothian, and together they soared through the heavens, discovering the 8 realms that made up this new universe, the mortal realms. Dracothian showed Sigmar the secrets of the universe, the star bridges and crystalline pathways that link the realms together, revealing worlds of wonder and danger. And so began the Age of Myth, an era of discovery, exploration, and the forging of civilization. Sigmar, reborn and inspired, travelled from realm to realm, bringing the light of order to lands shrouded in darkness. But Sigmar's early travels were not without challenge. In Azir, the realm of heavens, he battled powerful entities who sought to claim the skies for themselves. Sigmar defeated them all, sometimes with his hammer, Gael Maraz, and sometimes with words, forging alliances with those who would bend the knee and crushing those who would not. His voyages with Dracothian became the stuff of legends. In every realm, Sigmar found enclaves of struggling mortals and creatures beyond imagining. Barbaric tribes flocked to his banner, inspired by his strength and promise of a better future. The wild lands were tamed, predators driven away, and where once there had been only wilderness, great cities began to rise. Sigmar taught the tribes how to build, how to farm, and how to defend themselves. Under his guidance, mankind ceased wandering and began to. Sigmar's influence spread, and his legend grew, but he knew he couldn't bring order to the mortal realms alone. His journey led him to seek out the greatest beings of power, those who could stand as equals beside him. In the realm of death, Shyish, he found Nagash, buried beneath a mountain cairn of stone. Sigmar awakened the god of death, forging a tenuous alliance that would bring stability to the lands of the dead, at least for a time. In Hysh, Sigmar found the elven gods Tyrion and Teclis, twins who had survived the destruction of the old world, desperate for any trace of their lost kin. Sigmar offered them a place in his growing pantheon, and they swore oaths to him, bringing their unmatched knowledge of magic to his cause. In the Iron Mountains of Chamon, Sigmar discovered Grimnir and Grungni, the Duardan gods, chained upon a mountain peak, their pride broken. Sigmar freed them, and in return, they pledged themselves to his service. Grungni, crippled from his ordeal, offered to repay his debt through craftsmanship, forging weapons and armor that would become the stuff of legends. Grimnir, ever the warrior, demanded a foe worthy of his rage, and Sigmar named Volcatrix the mother of salamanders, a foe so powerful it would cost Grimnir his life. Together with the gods he had gathered, Sigmar forged the foundations of a new civilization. They drove out the primordial beings that ruled the realms, slaying tyrants and sealing away ancient threats. In Gyron, the realm of life, Sigmar outwitted the twisted Ravok the Canopy Dancer, saving Alariel Sylvaneth from corruption. In Shyish, he stood alongside Nagash to defeat the dreaming god, sealing it away for all eternity. In Ulgu, the realm of shadows, Sigmar held firm the great obsidian eel so that Malerion, the shadowy elven god, could imprison it in darkness. The Pantheon's power grew, and so did Sigmar's dream. He flattened the peak of Mount Celestian, creating the Pantheon, an assembly of gods who would rule over the mortal realms. Together united under a single vision of order and prosperity. From this mountain, Sigmar's voice echoed across the realms, calling mortals and gods alike to a brighter future. This was his problem: pride. You see, Sigmar did not create a pantheon of equals, nor did he entertain the concept of this pantheon being a chamber of openness and debate. There was a clear hierarchy where the other gods were equals, but Sigmar was the greatest of equals. It was this pride that would prove his downfall. Slighted by the way Nagash felt treated, after all, he had been a god for longer than Sigmar. His resentment became the basis for the great betrayal that enabled the forces of chaos to hold on to their tactical foothold of the All Points, or the devastation caused by the Necroquake. It would be all too easy to see this as Nagash, simply being Nagash, but the threads that held the pantheon together would soon begin to fray. Alarielle grew tired of Sigmar's single-minded directives to bring his own vision of order to the realms. While Sigmar sees the mortal realms as a vast empire to be organized, protected, and unified under his guidance, Alarielle views them as a living, breathing entity that should grow naturally, free from domination. She would later become more despondent when he withdrew to Azir and allowed her realms to be ravaged by Nurgle. This rather tragic attempt by Sigmar to create a strongly bound pantheon was doomed from the start, not just by competing desires, but by a failure of Sigmar to recognize that he could not bind others to his will. He is quoted, "When the pantheon fell, it was not just a betrayal. It was the end of a dream, one I had labored to shape from the ashes of the world that was. The age of chaos, betrayal, defeat, and the closing of Azir's gates. But even the brightest days are followed by the darkest nights. The age of myth gave way to the age of chaos, a time of destruction that would test Sigmar's resolve and the bonds of the pantheon to their breaking point. One by one, the forces of chaos began to infiltrate the realms, corrupting and seducing with promises of power and freedom. The gods of the pantheon began to waver." Alarielle blamed Sigmar for Nurgle's invasion of Ghyran, for it was he who had encouraged her to spread life far and wide, leaving her kingdom vulnerable. Nagash, ever ambitious, retreated to Shyish, resentful of the increasing power of his allies. Then came the Battle of Burning Skies, a battle that would mark the true beginning of the Age of Chaos. Sigmar gathered the armies of order, both mortal and divine, for a final stand against the forces of darkness. He clashed with the greatest champions of the Chaos gods, defeating demon lords of unimaginable power, Angrath the Exalted One, Feculox the Great Unclean One, Luxius the Keeper of Secrets, and Ciathanus the Lord of Change. But his greatest enemy was yet to come. Archaon, the ever-chosen of Chaos, rode forth to face Sigmar in single combat, and the two warriors clashed in a battle that shook the heavens. Yet Archaon's cunning outmatched even Sigmar's might. In a moment of deception, Archaon conjured an illusion that caused Sigmar to hurl Galmaraz, his sacred hammer, into the rift between worlds, losing it to the realm of chaos. The battle was lost, and Sigmar's forces were decimated. Desperate to turn the tide, Sigmar sought aid from his once ally Nagash, and together they faced Archaon at the All Points, the nexus of all realm gates. But as the battle raged, Nagash betrayed Sigmar, turning his undead legions against their allies in an attempt to seize power for himself. Enraged and broken, Sigmar retreated to Azir, closing its gates and leaving the realms to fend for themselves. He had failed, the pantheon was shattered, and the Age of Chaos had begun in full force. It was in the darkness of Azir that Sigmar faced his greatest trial, not a battle against a physical enemy, but a battle against despair. He realized that to defeat the Chaos gods, he could not simply be a warrior. He had to become something more. And so began the long wait, as Sigmar prepared a new weapon, a weapon that would change the course of history. In the heart of Azir, Sigmar began the forging of the Stormcast Eternals. Using the souls of fallen heroes who had died fighting chaos, he sought to create an army that could turn the tide of war. Grungni, the master smith, helped him in this endeavor, providing the tools and knowledge needed to shape souls into warriors of pure celestial power. The process of reforging was long and arduous, and Sigmar poured every ounce of his divine power into each Stormcast. These warriors were no longer mortal. They were beings of pure lightning and divine fury, encased in golden armor and wielding weapons of celestial might. Each Stormcast was a reflection of Sigmar's will, a living embodiment of his dream to reclaim the realms. But there was a cost. Each time a Stormcast died, their soul would return to Azir for reforging. But with each death, a part of their humanity was lost. They became colder, more distant, their memories fading with each rebirth. Even though Sigmar knew the price was high, he was willing to pay it. Fueled by the loss of his homeworld to the very same ruinous chaos gods, he chose to sacrifice the sanity of his noble creations to prevent the same happening to the mortal realms. The dawn of the Age of Sigmar began with a bolt of lightning that split the sky. Sigmar unleashed his Stormcast Eternals upon the mortal realms, and their arrival was a thunderclap of divine fury. The hammers of Sigmar, the first and greatest of the storm hosts, descended upon the Brimstone Peninsula, led by the mighty Vandus Hammerhand. There they clashed with the Gore-Tide, a warband of Khorns led by the brutal Korgus Khul. The battle was fierce, but Sigmar's Stormcast emerged victorious, opening the gates of Azir and signalling the beginning of the Realmgate Wars. These wars were fought across the realms as the Stormcast secured key realm gates, reclaiming lost cities and forging new alliances. In Shamon, they recovered Gal Maraz, Sigmar's lost hammer, after a desperate assault on the Eldritch Fortress, an act that renewed Sigmar's hope and cemented the Stormcast's place as his chosen champions. In Ghyran, the realm of life, Sigmar saw the devastation wrought by Nurgle and wept. He sent storm hosts to save what they could of the Jade Kingdoms, to find and rouse Alarielle, the Ever-Queen, who had retreated in despair. His warriors fought not just for victory, but for redemption, determined to avenge the realm's destruction and bring Alarielle back into the fight. Throughout the Realmgate Wars, Sigmar's eyes were always drawn to the All Points, the realm at the centre of it all, a place he had once defended, now lost to chaos. Archaon, his greatest foe, ruled the All Points, and every victory felt hollow as long as the Ever-Chosen held that cursed land. Yet the victories kept coming, and Sigmar began to believe that hope was not lost, that the realms could be saved. The Realmgate Wars ended, but the war for the mortal realms was far from over. Sigmar met with Alarielle in Highheim for the first time in centuries, renewing their alliance, yet darkness still loomed. Sigmar sensed something was amiss in the Nevergreen Mountains of Ghyran, where Tzeentch's minions taunted him, and he realized that chaos was far from defeated. As the years passed, Sigmar grew wary of another threat, Nagash. Vandus Hammerhand warned him that the god of death was planning something catastrophic, a spell so powerful that it would shake the foundations of reality itself. This was the Necroquake, a surge of death magic that would alter the very fabric of the mortal realms. In a desperate attempt to counter Nagash's plans, Sigmar hurled prophecy-rich Celestian meteors into the realms, dispatching Lord Ordinators to mine the celestial metal and prepare for the coming storm. When the Necroquake struck, the mortal realms were plunged into chaos once more. Sigmar responded by deploying 55 Sacrosanct Chambers, the newly forged Stormcast dedicated to countering the tides of death. His goal was not just to hold back Nagash's legions, but to uncover the secret flaw of reforging that haunted his Stormcast, a mystery that could hold the key to saving not only the realms, but the souls of his greatest warriors. The Necroquake was a disaster like no other. When Nagash unleashed his great ritual, a tidal wave of death magic surged through the mortal realms, causing countless realm gates to shudder and crack, and flooding the lands with the essence of Shyish. Grave sandstorms swept across the realms, and restless spirits clawed their way out of the underworlds, turning peaceful lands into haunted nightmares. For Sigmar, it was a dire reminder that even the mightiest of gods could be caught off guard. Sigmar's first response was one of urgency. The Sacrosanct Chambers, newly created branches of his Stormcast Eternals, were unleashed across the realms to counter the rising tide of the undead. These specialized storm hosts, wielding powerful arcane weapons and filled with magic, were tasked with stabilizing the realm gates and reclaiming lands swallowed by death. They faced horrors that defied understanding: walking skeletons, vengeful spirits, and ghastly night haunts led by Lady Alinda, the Mortook of Grief. But Sigmar's mission wasn't just about beating back the undead. The Necroquake had revealed a flaw that haunted him, the flaw of reforging. With each death and rebirth, the souls of his Stormcast were becoming more detached, more mechanical, losing fragments of themselves with every reforging. It was a revelation that shook Sigmar to his core, and he knew that simply fighting the forces of chaos and death would not be enough. He had to find a way to preserve the souls of his champions. In secret, Sigmar began to direct his sacrosanct storm hosts to search for ancient artifacts, powerful sources of arcane energy that might hold the key to reversing the flaw in reforging. Hidden chambers, lost temples, and sites of ancient power became battlegrounds as Sigmar's forces sought out the secrets buried deep within the mortal realms. As Sigmar's storm host struggled to contain the fallout of the Necroquake, the God-King knew he couldn't simply wait for the undead tide to recede. He had to strike back. Nagash had not just unleashed a spell, he had declared open war on the living, and his undead armies surged forth from Shyish to claim the realms for the Lord of Death. Sigmar's forces clashed with Nagash's legions in a brutal and unending series of battles known as the War of Souls. These battles were unlike any the mortal realms had seen before. In Shyish, the death magic was so thick it warped reality, creating pockets of time that moved at different speeds and landscapes that shifted like the dreams of the dead. The Stormcast fought against endless tides of skeletal warriors, spectral hosts, and Nagash's Mortooks, powerful lieutenants who served as the generals of his armies. The Celestial Vindicators, Astral Templars, and other storm hosts were at the forefront, their lightning-clad warriors standing as the bulwark against the tide of death. It was during this time that Sigmar's resolve hardened even further. He personally directed his generals from the throne of Azir, overseeing every campaign, studying every report, and searching for weaknesses in Nagash's defences. Every inch of ground won was bought with the blood of his champions, and every loss weighed heavily on his soul. He knew that the war against Nagash was not just a battle of armies, but a battle of will. A war to prove that life could defy death, and that hope could rise even from the ashes. The conflict pushed Sigmar to expand his armies. He opened new storm hosts, drawing from the souls of heroes who had fallen not only in battle, but those who had died resisting the terrors unleashed by the Necroquake. With each new chamber, the Stormcast Eternals became more varied and specialized, each embodying different aspects of war, magic, and resilience. Sigmar's armies were becoming more than just soldiers. They were a brotherhood, a testament to the indomitable spirit of mortals who refused to bow to darkness. The Necroquake had reshaped the mortal realms, and Sigmar knew that victory required more than just fighting battles. It required rebuilding. He needed to create safe havens, bastions of order that could stand against the tides of chaos and death. It was then that he began one of his most ambitious projects, the creation of the cities of Sigmar. These cities were to be shining beacons amidst the darkness, built upon the ruins of old civilizations and fortified with walls of stone and steel. Sigmar called upon his allies, Duardin engineers, elven mages and human artisans, to come together and forge new homes for the survivors of the Necroquake. These cities, like Hammerhall, Anvilgard and Vindicarum, became hubs of trade, culture and military might, each a testament to the power of unity and the strength of order. Sigmar's goal was not just to build cities, but to create a network of strongholds that could support each other, forming a chain of light across the realms. He encouraged the mortals of the realms to reclaim the lands around them, to farm, to build, and to defend their homes with pride. These cities became melting pots of races and cultures, where humans, Duardin, elves, and even some of the more neutral-minded Seraphon worked side by side. Sigmar's vision was not without its challenges. Many in the realms, traumatized by centuries of chaos, distrusted the God-King's authority. There were murmurs of rebellion, whispers of dissatisfaction, and old rivalries that flared up in the crowded streets of the new cities. Sigmar knew he could not rule through fear. He had to inspire his people to follow him willingly, to believe in the promise of a brighter future. To that end, Sigmar established the Free Guilds, military forces composed of mortals who were not Stormcast, but who fought with the same dedication and courage. These Free Guilds became the backbone of the cities of Sigmar, and their leaders were given a place of honor among the ranks of the God-King's advisors. It was a sign that Sigmar believed in the strength of mortals, that they could be more than just survivors. They could be heroes in their own right. But even as the cities of Sigmar flourished, the war with Nagash raged on. The battlefields of Shyish, Akshi and Giran became sites of endless conflict, as the undead sought to expand their grip, and the Stormcast Eternals fought to push them back. The Soul Wars, as they came to be known, were not just battles of armies. They were battles for the very souls of the living and the dead alike. The storm of death magic unleashed by the Necroquake had fractured reality, and the balance between life and death was forever changed. Sigmar's sacrosanct chambers became the spearhead of his assault, wielding the power of the storm to cleanse tainted lands and rescue souls caught in the web of Nagash's schemes. Lord Arcanum's wielders of arcane might stood alongside liberators and retributors, battling through the nightmarish landscapes of Shyish to liberate the enslaved dead. Yet even in victory, the cost was high. Each battle fought against Nagash's endless armies weighed heavily on Sigmar's Stormcast, and the flaw of reforging became more and more apparent. As the war dragged on, more and more Stormcast began to show signs of what they called the hollowing, a loss of emotion, memory, and a sense of self. They became colder, more distant, and it was a transformation that haunted Sigmar like a shadow he could not escape. The Soul Wars reached their climax when Nagash, in his hubris, sought to unleash an even greater ritual, a spell that would bind every soul in existence to his will. Sigmar's forces rallied for a final assault, knowing that the fate of the realms hung in the balance. In the heart of Shyish, amidst a storm of magic and steel, Sigmar's champions clashed with Nagash's most powerful servants, battling through necropolises of bone and cities of the dead. The battle ended in a stalemate, but the consequences were felt across the realms. Nagash's ritual was disrupted, his ambitions thwarted for the time being, but the damage was done. The mortal realms were scarred, and the war was far from over. For Sigmar, it was both a victory and a reminder that even the strongest defenses could be breached, and that the line between hope and despair was perilously thin. The aftermath of the Soul Wars did not bring peace, but a renewed determination. Sigmar knew that he could not simply defend the cities he had built. He had to push outward to reclaim the lands lost to chaos, death, and destruction. Thus began the Dawnbringer Crusades, a series of ambitious expeditions to bring order to the wild, untamed frontiers of the mortal realms. The Dawnbringer Crusades were more than just military campaigns. They were journeys of faith and hope. Great convoys of mortals set out from the cities of Sigmar, protected by Stormcast Eternals and Free Guild soldiers. These caravans carried with them the tools of civilization, blacksmiths, farmers, and scholars who sought to rebuild the shattered realms. Each expedition was a gamble, a test of courage and resilience, as they ventured into lands teeming with danger. For Sigmar, the Dawnbringer Crusades were a chance to rekindle the hope of the Age of Myth, to bring life to places long abandoned to darkness. He oversaw each campaign from Azir, dispatching storm hosts to protect the settlers and secure vital strongholds. These expeditions became legends in their own right, with tales of bravery and sacrifice echoing across the realms. Yet the Dawnbringer Crusades were also a reminder of how far the realms had fallen. Many of these expeditions ended in tragedy, ambushed by chaos warbands, devoured by rampaging beasts, or consumed by the corruption of Nurgle. Sigmar knew that every failure was a painful step backward, but he also knew that giving up was not an option. The mortal realms needed hope, and the Dawnbringer Crusades were the flame that could light the way. As Sigmar's Dawnbringer Crusades set forth to reclaim the realms, the Skaven were there, always watching, always waiting. The convoys of settlers and soldiers, hopeful mortals seeking to bring light to the dark corners of the world, became prime targets for Skaven ambushes. The Ratmen saw these expeditions not as a threat, but as opportunities to disrupt Sigmar's plans, to sow despair, and to gather new resources for their underground empires. Sigmar had seen this pattern before. No matter how hopeful or well-prepared his Dawnbringer Crusades were, the Skaven would find a way to undermine them. Warpstone bombs buried along the routes, hidden plagues unleashed upon unwary settlers, and massive tunneling assaults on vulnerable fortresses. They were tactics designed to wear down his forces, to make them question the very ground beneath their feet. But Sigmar's resolve remained unbroken. He would not allow the Skaven to dictate the fate of the realms, to taint his vision of a brighter future. He ordered his armies to remain vigilant, to dig deep trenches and fortify every camp, every outpost, and every city built during the Crusades. He knew that to defeat the Skaven was not about grand battles and overwhelming victories. It was about endurance, about proving that order could stand firm against even the most insidious threats. His free guilds, mortal soldiers who fought alongside the Stormcast, became his eyes and ears in the dark places of the realms, always on guard for the telltale signs of a Skaven incursion. Every settler who picked up a shovel or a spear became part of Sigmar's defense, and his priests and engineers learned to craft weapons of light that could pierce even the deepest shadows. Yet Sigmar never underestimated the Skaven, never allowed himself to believe they were defeated, because he knew that the moment he did, they would strike from below. To Sigmar, the Skaven are more than just an enemy. They are a constant reminder of the fragility of order. They are proof that no victory is ever complete, no city ever truly safe, and no realm ever beyond corruption. The God-King's frustration with the Skaven is as deep as his fury, but he understands that their nature is not simply evil. It is the embodiment of chaos itself. the unpredictable and ever-changing force that lies at the heart of the mortal realms. Sigmar has learned that he cannot destroy the Skaven, but he can contain them, hinder them, and push them back. His Stormcast Eternals remain vigilant, patrolling the darkest corners of the realms and delving into the deepest tunnels in search of the Ratman's lairs. His cities, the bastions of order in a chaotic world, are fortified not just against demons and warlords, but against the insidious threat that lies beneath the streets. He knows that the war against the Skaven will never end, that they are a plague that cannot be cured, only managed. Yet Sigmar does not despair. Every time his warriors emerge victorious from the darkness, every time a Skaven plot is foiled, every time a city stands tall against their attacks, it is proof that order can endure. That light can shine even in the deepest shadows. The Skaven will always be there, lurking beneath the foundations of his empire, gnawing at the edges of civilization. But as long as Sigmar has breath in his lungs and the power of the storm in his veins, he will fight them. He will be the hammer that smashes their schemes, the shield that protects the innocent, and the light that drives back the darkness. For Sigmar knows that in the battle against chaos, it is not the mightiest foe that is the greatest threat. It is the one you cannot see. Now in the Age of Sigmar, the God-King faces a new reality, a realmscape that is as fragile as it is resilient, where the borders between life, death, order, and chaos are constantly shifting. Sigmar's challenges have only grown, and he watches the mortal realms with a wary eye, always searching for the next threat, always preparing for the next catastrophe. Nagash's defeat in the Soul Wars has not ended the threat of death, and the forces of chaos are never truly vanquished. Archaon, the Ever-Chosen, remains a constant threat, ruling the All-Points and waiting for any sign of weakness. The lands of Akshi and Giran are under constant threat, with the followers of Khorne, Nurgle, Tzeentch and Slaanesh seeking to exploit any advantage. Sigmar's relationship with his allies is also strained. Alarielle, still recovering from Nurgle's invasions, remains distant, her trust in the God-King fractured. Nagash, though defeated, plots his next move, and the Elven gods Tyrion and Teclis pursue their own mysterious agendas. Even the Stormcast Eternals, his greatest creation, are beginning to question the costs of eternal war, their reforgings taking a toll on their spirits. For Sigmar, the future of the mortal realms remains uncertain, but he will not give up the fight. His vision of a united and prosperous realm, free from the tyranny of chaos and death, is still alive. The Dawnbringer Crusades continue, the cities of Sigmar stand strong, and the Stormcast Eternals are ever ready to face the next threat, whatever form it may take. The Age of Sigmar is an age of struggle, an age where hope and despair clash with every sunrise, and where the fate of the realms hangs by a thread. But it is also an age of heroes, and at the centre of it all stands Sigmar, the God-King, the Eternal Guardian, and the warrior who will never bow to darkness. For newcomers to Age of Sigmar, Sigmar's story is the beating heart of the mortal realms, a saga of sacrifice, redemption, and the power of hope. He is the shining light that guides mortals through the darkness, a god who believes that even the most shattered world can be remade. His journey is far from over, and as long as the realms endure, so too will the legend of Sigmar. Thank you for joining me in this journey through Sigmar's story since the Necroquake. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the ongoing struggle of the God-King, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. There are many more stories of the mortal realms to uncover, and I can't wait to share them with you.